Okay, I want to get into Microsoft here because they came out with some really interesting products at their recent announcement. And here's the thing, they are getting pretty ambitious when it comes to their industrial design. They're really coming out with some interesting, gorgeous looking products. I'm talking about the industrial design, not necessarily the software. I'll mention Viper again. As he said on Twitter, these devices look great, something like this, I'm paraphrasing, but Windows is still Windows. And I have to kind of agree there. This is a little tangent before we actually get into the devices and how interesting they are. I got a gaming PC recently. Somebody sent it over. It's a nice machine. It costs a couple grand and has some cool features. The hardware, very powerful, very loud, very hot. But it does still run Windows. And I've been used to using Mac OS for so long that it felt very clunky to me. A lot of the stuff looked like it was straight out of like Windows XP almost. The title bars and menus, and it sort of has like a fresh coat of paint, but it doesn't actually blow me away with the design. It's very utilitarian. And by the way, opening up like the start menu and seeing a bunch of ads, that was not cool. So anyways, you can have a really cool device and not necessarily have a great software experience to go with it. But I will say Microsoft is coming out with some really cool looking devices. So in particular, they're really pushing the Surface lineup, and that's become a big business. I don't know if you guys know this, but Surface revenue is up 23% year over year. It's up to $5.7 billion yearly last year, which is a very small percentage of Microsoft's actual revenue, by the way. But Microsoft is really changed as a company compared to what I think a lot of people think of when they think of Microsoft. They're really more of a cloud company and an enterprise company more than anything. And why that's important to this discussion is because they can now afford to do crazy things when it comes to hardware and take some chances and make some big bets. And if they don't pay off, it's not really a big deal because it's not really the big main part of their business. And that's actually a good place for them to be because now they can get to experimenting and maybe think about trying to make a real impact on the market versus their competition. And again, here we are back to competition. We just talked about this in the last segment, but competition makes everything better. And as someone who's generally very happy in the Apple ecosystem, it's great to see some competition rising up on the design front because Microsoft is doing some stuff that's not boring. And it's good for them to come out and push Apple and other companies, Google, whoever, to do better and to not just stay stagnant and to move industries forward and create new industries and markets. So what Microsoft did at this event was, at least with the services, they launched some predictive kind of iterative updates, some safe updates, so that if you buy a machine, it'll be more reliable and it's nothing crazy. It's nothing that's going to get them in trouble. And then they launched a couple of devices that are crazier. They're bigger bets and they are making people turn their heads and be like, what is that? And not necessarily in a bad way. I think everybody, for the most part, the vibe I was getting from the people that were at the event and from the pictures that I've seen, it was like, wow, that is some cool looking stuff. I've never seen anything quite like that. And as a tech fan in general, which is what I consider myself, not just an Apple person, a tech fan in general, that's exciting to me. I think the device that was launched that is most interesting to me is the new Duo, which is kind of a phone. It's a folding phone. But unlike the Samsung Galaxy Fold, it's not like one big panel that actually folds in half. It's just like two screens that fold together. It looks like a very, 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 very miniature laptop. And it reminds me of stuff like PDAs from back in the day, your personal digital assistant, somewhere in between laptop size and like phone size. And they were called PDAs, and they ran Windows, and they were very interesting to me back in the day. It kind of reminds me of that. So it kind of gets me a little bit giddy. That said, it's not going to be available for a whole year. So that'll be interesting to see what all crops up after the Duo has arrived on the scene. Microsoft did not put Windows on the Duo, though, which is an interesting choice. It's going to run Android. Microsoft doesn't care anymore what platform you're using. If it's Mac, if it's Android, if it's Windows, they don't care. They're agnostic towards everything. That's their strategy, is just to be everywhere. And so it's just going to be interesting, though, to see Android on a Microsoft phone, basically, although I'm pretty sure they're not actually classifying it as a phone. So I'll just say again, I'm really excited that Microsoft came out with these really interesting devices because it's going to push everything forward. I'll admit, like, for me, some of the Apple products They're around so long. With iPhones, it's often 3 years before you get a totally new design refresh. And MacBooks Pros have looked the same for how long? I wouldn't mind if Apple was a little bit more risky in their design choices. I don't think they're going to. It's very much ingrained in their DNA to be how they already are and to operate that way. But sometimes it feels like Apple moves almost too slow compared to the competition, and it's because they can. And so kudos to Apple for being able to do that. But the long and the short of it is, if Microsoft fails completely with these two really crazy new devices, it doesn't matter. So that's good. I'm glad that they're out there developing it to push everything forward. And it's nice that they're in a spot where if these devices fail, it just doesn't matter because it's good for everybody.